Hello, everyone. My name is Selena, and I'm the presenter for this course. So a lot of this class, we're going to have a little bit of a lecture to kind of review some basic concepts of Microsoft Excel, and then we're going to go into the actual exercise, because I find with Excel, you definitely need an exercise to kind of help exercise that brain and get comfortable with the software. So hopefully everyone can see, I have a little PowerPoint, not a PowerPoint, I have my PDF file open, the Microsoft Excel for Business formulas and bar graphs. And now I'm also going to open up Microsoft Excel. Now, if you don't have Microsoft Excel at home, like you don't have it installed on your home computer, it's not the end of the world. If you get the free Outlook email account with Microsoft, like Hotmail or MSN or Live or Outlook.com, the free version, you can actually get it through OneDrive, which is kind of their version of Google Drive. And then they have Microsoft Excel Online. It doesn't have every single bell and whistle, but it does have a lot of the basic stuff that you need to work on in a Microsoft Excel workbook. So we're just talking about the basic operations. Basically, if you know arithmetic, you can do this exercise. We're not doing super complex math. Some complex formulas a little bit, but we're not doing like algebra or statistics or geometry or anything too crazy. So of course you got the plus sign and the minus sign, and the asterisk key is used for multiplication. And of course the slash key is for division. So this is just kind of your basic stuff. So we kind of will talk about the order of operations, which is important to note. That's one mathematic concept you sort of need to know for Microsoft if you want to be successful. Also some basic formulas and the Autosum feature we're talking about, and copy and paste a little bit. And we'll also create a bar graph, maybe one or two depending on the time. So how I remember the order of operations is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So we got parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So that's just something to keep in the back of your head. And you'll see that all the cells here, there's like this name box here. So wherever you put your mouse cursor, hopefully you guys are using a mouse cursor. That makes things a little bit easier, at least for me using Microsoft Excel. I prefer mouse cursor. If not, you can use your fingers if you have like a touch screen, like a tablet or something. But you definitely don't want to take this webinar using a cell phone, because it'll be very challenging. Even more challenging than it already is. Okay, so I'm just making my screen a little bit bigger so we got room for both things. And so there's the Autosum kind of button. It's kind of hard to see. It shows up in the home ribbon. I'll kind of maybe maximize this. So there's your Autosum button here. It's kind of on the right top side there. Kind of looks like a strange E shape. And there's the Autosum, so that's a good feature to know about. And it hides there in the home ribbon and the editing group here. And then, as I was saying, you got the cell name bar here. So anytime you select one of those cells, so if you don't have like a computer mouse, you can use the down or up arrow keys to move around, or you can use the enter key. And the enter key allows you to go from row to row. And the tab key on your keyboard lets you go from column to column. If you don't have a keyboard, it kind of makes it a little more challenging. Hopefully you're good with your touch screen skills, because I know a lot of us are using tablets and cell phones. So that would work as well. That when I use Excel, I like using a computer keyboard and a mouse. I think it's so much easier, personally. So let me go ahead and make this a little bit smaller window, and we can get back to the exercise. So this, if you ever see like these weird notations, that means your column is too narrow. Like if you see weird number signs. So if you see that, try expanding the size of your column. Like you'll see they have these cell name, well actually this is kind of like, I guess, the column names. We got column A, column B, column C. So you see when I kind of select the title there of, A, B, C, or D, it highlights the entire column. And it's the same thing with the rows here, but the rows are represented by numbers. So every cell, has a letter and a number. And then you'll see in these examples here, they talk about how, if you make a typo with your formulas, you'll get all sorts of different error messages, and kind of explains the situations a little bit. But for now, hopefully you have Microsoft Excel, either, Microsoft Word online with your Outlook or Hotmail account, or, you have it saved on your computer somewhere. And as I was saying, this exercise works for Office, for Microsoft Excel 2013, 2016, and 2019. They're all three of those applications are very similar. It's just that 2019 and 2016 might have more bells and whistles, but we're kind of talking about more of the basic features that you need to know about, and not like special extra features. So let's go ahead and save our workbook, because that's always good to save. So I'm going to go up here to the File tab and select Save As. And in your case, you probably want to either select Documents or Downloads or Desktop, whatever works for you. For now, I'm going to select Documents folder on my computer, and I'll just do Sales. And you'll see we just have Sheet 1. And so I just did the File, Save As, saved it to the Documents folder or whatever folder you want. Make sure it says Excel Workbook. If you want to make sure it's compatible with older versions, you could always do Excel 97 through 2003. But for most of us, I think we should just stick with Excel Workbook. And see it just saying, hey, do you want to replace it? And I said, yes. So we'll go ahead and start. We got to do a little data entry here. So in cell C1, you can either use your arrow keys or tab over. Yeah, C1. Oops, I was on C2. So C1, I'm going to start typing gross sales. And then I'm going to use my tab key and go over here to cell D1 and select units sold is what I'm going to type here. And then I'm going to do average. And don't worry, right now the columns are a little too small, but we're going to fix that in a little bit, so you don't have to worry about it right now. And so then after I type those three headers, so I have, C1 says gross sales, D1 says units sold, and E1 says average units. I'm going to go ahead and hit the Enter key. And now if you want to adjust the size of the column so you can see the headings and the categories better, I would just put my mouse cursor between C and D here. You see where it says like C and D, and it becomes like kind of double-sided black arrows. If I double click, it automatically expands. If I go between D and E, where that little header is, the little gray area above the kind of the white cells area, double click there. And E and F, I'm going to do the same thing. Now you can also left click and drag with maybe your finger or your mouse pad or your computer mouse. But I kind of just go in between the two cells, like the header there where it says C and D, and double click or left click and drag if you got a mouse. It just depends on what device you're using. Okay, and now I'm going to type some more information here. So under gross sales, under the C column, gross sales, I'm going to start typing my numbers here. We're going to pretend this is like a used car sales business. You can pretend we're selling AC units or we're selling used cars or something like that, because the numbers do get kind of large. So, and then what I'm doing is I'm typing in, I'm kind of following this example we have in 7. And so I'm typing those numbers in there. Now, these numbers right now don't have commas, but we're going to add commas later, so don't worry about the commas. Just go ahead and start typing your numbers. Hopefully here, everyone has some basic comfortability with the keyboard. This is definitely not a beginner's class. Like if you don't know how to use the internet or email, this class is going to be very difficult for you. But we are recording it, so you could always, take the notes and exercises and watch the recording and practice doing this. Like basically, I've done this exercise a lot of times, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. Especially after the second or third time, it gets a lot easier. Excel is just like anything else. It takes a lot of practice. And I've been practicing for like over 10 years. So remember, the quick tip here is you can use the Enter key to go from row to row. So hopefully you got your gross sales numbers, which are the largest numbers, and then I'm kind of using my mouse or my arrow keys, or you can use your tab key. So remember, tab key takes you from column to column. So right now I'm going to cell D2, and I know I'm in cell D2 because the cell name box is here. And don't forget, if you make a typo or a mistake, you want to go to the formula bar here where it says FX, and you can fix your mistakes there. So if I accidentally would say I typed the wrong number here, like I accidentally typed 203 when I meant to type 20, I can select that cell and then I go up to the cell name box here and then I can delete and put the correct number. So remember column D has got the small numbers like 20, 22, and then I type in 23. So that's the amount of units sold. So in this case, we're talking about used cars or air conditioning units, whichever you prefer. Or you can just imagine whatever products your company sells that are expensive. Or, you can even think of donations. Like right now I have the list, it says gross sales, but if you're in a nonprofit organization, I'm sure you kind of keep track of what donations you receive each month. So this would be kind of nice if you would say you need to make a chart for the VPs or your board of trustees or something and say, hey, this is what we've been doing the last 6 months. Instead of saying gross sales, you could say, donations or whatever it is if you're with a nonprofit. But in this case, I'm just going to stick with gross sales. So remember this exercise, you can adapt it and change it to meet whatever your business or nonprofit needs are. As I know there's some nonprofit people joining us today. So, businesses and nonprofits and individuals who just want to learn more about Excel or job seekers, this is a great workshop for that. Now that I got my information here, don't worry, we're going to do formulas soon, but first we're going to label our monthly sales. So the first cell here, B2, so I'm kind of in step 8 here. And in step 8, it's nice because we kind of try to explain the autofill feature as best we can, where you kind of copy and paste formulas. And or in this case, kind of consecutive things like months and days of the week. So I typed Jan and I'm going back here and you see there's that little green box there in the bottom right hand corner. If you left click and drag your mouse, I'm not sure how well it works with a tablet. Oops, I forgot a number here. I'm missing a number. I'm missing something because it's supposed to be all the way to June. So I must have made a typo here. Double check. Aha. So what I'm going to do to fix my typo, because what happened is I skipped the numbers for April by accident. So this is actually a good learning experience for everyone here if you're not familiar with copy and paste. So what I'm going to do is I kind of highlighted cells C5 through D7 because that's our D6 in this case because that's where I made my mistakes. And then I'm kind of highlighting it, and I know it's highlighted because it has the railroad tracks. So there's a couple ways of doing it. I did Control C, but if you go up here to the clipboard area, there's also a copy button, and that will also add those little railroad tracks. And so that's your signal that Microsoft is, Excel is trying to copy something. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select cell C6 through D7, and then I'm going to click on that paste button. And then I'm going to go back here and select these 2 cells that were incorrect. And then I just kind of hit the delete key on my keyboard. So now I'm going to put the correct numbers for April, which I have the gross sales is 929,988. So it's over 2,900 something. And then we got 22 here. And I'm going to double check that it got my numbers correct. So I got 20, 22, 23, another 22 for April, 21 for May, and 26 for June. But let's talk, because because of my typo, I kind of missed explaining the autofill feature. So what I did is I knew that I'm talking about months, so I put Jan, or if you want, you could spell it out completely if you prefer. It's just a matter of what your preferences are. So you could do Jan or January, and then you'll see that when I put my cursor here, and I don't know how it works with the finger so much with the tablet, but you'll see here it has a little green box there at the bottom corner, and I left clicked and dragged, and it kind of does this fill series thing. So if it's set to copy cells, it might just do January for all of them, but luckily I've done this enough that it knows that I'm talking about fill the series, which in this case, filling the series is the months. But you can't, let me see if I can zoom in and make things a little bit bigger. So there is here, like in this little 3 dots here, it gives me the option to zoom in and make things a little bit bigger. So I went ahead and did that. And then there's also the zoom feature in Excel. Like right now, you'll see at the very bottom corner, if you have the full version of Microsoft Excel. I'm not sure about Word Online. It probably, I mean, or Excel Online might be a little bit different, but there's like these zoom features kind of at the bottom, like the plus and minus, and this is like 100%. And now I kind of expanded it. I'm making it like 150. Oops, I made it 10%. Let me go back to 150. Oh, no, 300 is too big. I think 130 is a good number. Okay, so I got my numbers in here. And this is saying just do the best you can. If you can't enter all the numbers, at least enter like 3 months worth of numbers so you have something to work with. So at least if you got January through March, you got something to work with. But if you can, if you're good with typing, you can do January through June. So the autofill feature is a saying it's kind of tricky to explain online, but you'll see how it became kind of when I put my cursor at that bottom corner there, it becomes a black kind of plus sign or cross, and then you can like left click and drag. I'm just kind of doing this as an example, but I don't need all those months. We're just dealing with 6 months for this exercise, just to keep it easier, especially for those who may be newer to Excel. And then I'm going to do a formula. So now there is the auto sum feature, but in step 9, I kind of just do a formula just so you get comfortable with it, because all the formulas start with an equal sign. That pretty much all the formulas I've ever dealt with in Excel start with an equal sign. And then in this case, I'm going to put the cell name, which is C2. And you'll see that it kind of highlights it, kind of a blue purplish color. And then I'm going to do slash D2. Oh, no, I'm in the wrong formula. Darn it. I went to the wrong area. Okay. So I forgot, we got to do the exercise in E2. So in E2, we're going to basically divide units sold by gross sales to kind of get an estimated cost of how much it costs per unit. In this case, how many, maybe the used car or the AC units. So I'm going to do equal sign C2 D2. And so basically I'm on step 9 here. And there we go. So you see the number, it's about 12,270. And if you want, you'll see when you kind of go back and highlight the formula, it kind of highlights the 2 cells to kind of let you know, okay, this is what's included in the formula. Then I'm going to hit the enter key. And now I'm going to use that kind of autofill feature to copy the formula. So you'll see when I put my cursor there, after I've hit enter, and I kind of hit enter to just make sure that it does the division or the formula that I want it to do. In this case, this formula has to deal with division. Then I can go ahead and left click and drag with that little, see how it becomes like a black plus sign. And there you go. So you'll see that, different months, the kind of the average unit cost varied. Kind of just depends, because there's of course more expensive cars or more expensive AC units. Okay, and then let's see. So that's kind of a basic formula. Now with the gross sales, we can actually use the autofill feature for that for sure. Okay. So I already did step 10 where I kind of copied and pasted that formula about the units sold, kind of how much the cost of those are. And now I'm going to, we could use the autofill feature, or in this case, for step 11, I'll do sum. And this is saying it doesn't have to be capitalized. It will automatically capitalize it for you. So I have C2 colon C7. So when you see that colon, what it does is it adds all the cells together, or in this case, because I'm dealing with sum, so that deals with addition. That's how I can manually do the formula. And then I hit enter. Now, if I wanted to, in my editing group on the far right side in the home ribbon, there is the Autosum feature. And then you'll see it automatically does the formula for me. And so you'll see it has the equal sign, sum, parentheses, D2 colon D7, and then parentheses. So it's basically kind of adding together all the units sold for those 6 months. And then I hit the enter key and the formula takes effect. Now with the average unit sold column here, the Autosum feature isn't really going to work that well. It's probably just going to add all these numbers together to make a total, and that's not what we want. We kind of just want to know what the average cost of the units. So that formula, you'll see when you make a mistake, it tells you. So I'm going to go back and kind of delete that. If I'd gone to the formula bar here, it would have been easier to fix. And so what I'm going to do basically is kind of copy that formula. I can use the autofill feature. And then there it is. Now you'll see we have kind of decimal points there, and some numbers with decimal points and some without. So just kind of depending on whatever your needs are for your project. You may or may not want those decimal points, and I'm going to show you how we can kind of format it. So what I'm going to do is select cells C2 through E8. So I'm kind of just selecting the numbers. I'm not worrying about the months or the headers. And now is the fun part is when you're in your, I'm going to kind of make it a little bit bigger so you can see it better. Because you'll see it kind of shrinks the menus here at the top. In my home ribbon here, if I go to the number group, I can format the numbers. You'll see they have the little number tab, and then I can make the decimal place 0 if that's what I choose to do. Now, if you decided that you want to have 2 decimal places, you know, because you're dealing with like some change and stuff and decimal numbers, that's totally fine. You can keep a 2 there, but for this exercise, I'm just putting a 0. And then I'm using the 1000 separator, you know, like the comma for that, and I click OK. And then you'll see we have nice round numbers. So it's just a matter of preference. And you'll also notice, just for your information, when you're in that kind of that number dialog box, which is kind of that right to the right of number here in the number group, you can also change it to currency or accounting or scientific or fractions or percentage. It just depends what numbers you're dealing with. But in this case, we're just going to keep it simple and stick with numbers. Okay, so is the saying, you know, as long as your numbers are sort of matching mine, I mean, if they're not 100%, don't worry, it's an exercise. You can always do it again. There's no grade. You don't have to worry about being graded if you make a mistake. And so hopefully everybody here will have some kind of chart. Now, in my example in the exercise, I have, I guess, lines around it. If you wanted to have lines, you could just highlight cells B1 through B8 if you wanted to, and then you could do all borders and add borders. It's just a matter of preference. Some people like borders, some people don't. So just up to you. And now we're going to get into the fun thing. We're going to add a new sheet with some more complex formulas to make this exercise more challenging. So I basically what I did is I went to the bottom here. You'll see at the bottom of your Excel window somewhere, hopefully. There's like sheet 1 and sheet 2. And to add the sheet 2, I clicked on the plus sign there at the very bottom, kind of the bottom left-hand corner there, and then I was able to add sheet 2. And then on sheet 2, it's a little bit different, quite a bit different from the previous sheet. I'm going to go ahead and select a cell A3, and I'm going to do gross cells. And I know that I'm going to need a bigger column. So after I hit enter, I went ahead and I'm going to adjust the size. So I moved my cursor between A and B column headers there. And then you kind of left click and drag. I'm not sure how well it works with a tablet. So hopefully maybe your finger, you can press down with your finger and drag it. As I was saying, I haven't used Excel on a tablet, but I know some people do like to use it on a tablet. And then what I did is after I hit gross sales, I typed 5% discount. So let's say for that 6-month period, you had a 5% discount on your items that you're selling, whether it be cars or whatever. And then 8% commission is what you pay your salespeople. So you want to make sure you got to pay them. And then we have units sold, which is a category we had from the first sheet. And then the next one is transport 500. So basically our item is big, so the transport costs and delivery costs are about 500. And I guess we pay that for our clients. So you kind of have to figure out the formula based on, you know, whatever transportation or expenses you need to deduct. And then here is net sales is the last column. And so how I'm going from row to row is I'm using the enter key on my keyboard, or if you have arrow keys, you could use those, or hopefully you could just do something with your touch screen and touch the cell that you need. So basically I entered the information in cells A3 through A8. And I know the cell name because we got the same cell name box there for anyone who missed that part. And then remember, anytime you got to move from column to column, you got your tab key, which works too. And then remember the auto fit feature here. If I double click or left click and drag, I can expand the size so that you can see those headers or those names so they're not looking distorted or anything. And then we're going to go ahead and add the months, kind of like what we did before, but it's going in a different direction. And so here it is. I typed Jan, and then I'm going to kind of use that little autofill feature, which is that little green, it might look like a green or gray box at the very bottom there, and you kind of left click and drag it. And I think I stop around G. Yes. So I stop around G2. So then I got January through June. And what's really cool is we're going to learn about a special feature called transpose, which is a way to copy things when you're kind of going from horizontal to vertical views and stuff. And remember, we're going to go for a few times, we're going to go back and forth between sheet 1 and sheet 2. So sheet 1 is the first sheet where we put in the gross sales and the average units sold. And then sheet 2 is where we're going to do some more advanced formulas. And we're going to use the transpose feature. So the first part is we're going to copy the gross sales from sheet 1. And we're not going to worry about the total. We're just going to focus on January through June or whatever months you have. And so you see I'm kind of highlighting cells C2 through C7. And then I'm using the copy button. You can also use Control-C if you have a Windows computer or with a keyboard. And then you'll see I got the nice railroad tracks kind of going around. And then I'm going to go to sheet 2. And then this is where it gets fun. I'm putting my cursor in cell B3, the first cell for January for gross sales. And then I'm going to go up here to the clipboard, this paste feature here. And the second row that's the transpose. So it kind of looks like a clipboard with like two little boxes, one at the bottom and one to the right. And then you click that and it transposes what we had. So because I had borders on the sheet 1 that I did, whether you have borders or not, you don't need borders. We're going to fix the borders later. You can, at least you just copy and paste the numbers. So we can have borders or no borders. It doesn't really matter at this point. This is just an exercise. And then what I'm going to do is do the same thing for units sold, except I have to select different cells. So units sold, and I'm going to select cell D2 through D7. So 20 through 26 here. And then again, I go to the copy button here in the clipboard. And then I go here to sheet 2. And the units sold on this sheet 2 is actually on cell B6. So then I'm going to go back up here. And so remember, I'm not doing my normal paste because we're going kind of pasting, copying, and pasting in different directions. So we have to use the transpose button, which is on the second row here in your paste menus. If you do the right click method, it's also kind of the same thing. So Control V, like using Control C, Control V may not work so well with this particular exercise, but the right click option, if you do paste special, they have the transpose there, or you can do it up in the clipboard menu area. So remember, I'm going to review the transpose because this always throws people off whenever I've done the class in person. Is I'm just copying the gross sales and the units sold, but we're doing them separately. So I got C2 through C7, and then I'm using the copy feature. You can either right click as well. That feature works too. And then I'm going up to cell B3, and then you would want to, if you do the right click feature, you would go to paste special and select the last option in the second row here. That's transpose. So that's a really good copy paste feature to know about if you're dealing with multiple spreadsheets. And I'll go ahead and just kind of move this. Oh, I need to expand the size of this. So I'm going to go here to the corner and make it nice and zoomed in. Okay, so we're getting into, oh, I see a little typo. I meant to have a space there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with our first formula for this spreadsheet. So we're in sheet 2. So under the January numbers, under gross sales and cell B4, I'm going to put the formula for the 5% discount, which we're taking away from our gross sales number because we had a special promotion for the 6-month period. So I'm doing equal sign. The parentheses are kind of optional. I'm just going to go ahead and put them in there. In this case, because there's not multiple formulas going on, if you had multiple formulas going on, then a more complex formula, you would definitely need the parentheses. And then I'm using the asterisk key. So if you have a keyboard, it's the shift and the number 8 key to get that asterisk key because it represents multiplication. And then I'm going to go ahead and do 0, period or decimal point 08, and then parentheses, and then hit enter. And so the formula is kind of like over 19,600 something. And you'll see here, it shows up here in the formula bar. Now the reason why we're putting the cell name is that I can copy and paste this formula. That's why. So if I wanted to use the autofill feature to copy and paste the formula, you'll see I kind of hit enter and then I went back to that cell with the completed formula. And then you'll see if I put my cursor there at the very bottom corner, it becomes a black cross, or in this case, plus sign. It kind of looks to me like a plus sign. And then I left click and drag it with my mouse. Hopefully you have a mouse. If not, use your finger the best you can. If worse comes to worse, if that doesn't work for you, there's also an option, like if you're having trouble with that feature, because I know some people may not have a mouse. The other option is to do paste special, but use a different feature. So I'll just review that for anyone who doesn't have a computer mouse. Is I can go here and kind of copy that formula, use the copy button. And then what I could do is I could highlight these cells and I could do paste values, or where is it? There should be an option for paste formula. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, there it is, paste formula. So the paste formula is in the special paste area here, kind of on the first row, second option. And then basically it kind of has a clipboard with an FX next to it, and it basically copies and pastes the formula. So you'll see here it multiplies B3, whatever in B3 cell with the 5%, oh, I put 8%. Oops, that's a typo. Uh-oh. Very active with the typos today. Or let me do, okay, oops, I made a mistake there. Let's see, 5%. Okay. It seems to, oh, okay, definitely. Oops, I used that, I confused the 5% and the 8% formula, which they're kind of similar but different. Of course, you got the 5 and the 8 makes a big difference. So let me fix my formula here. So I'm going to kind of highlight these and delete those. So I fixed my formula and went it back to the 5% because right now this is the row 4 is the 5% formula. So you can use that autofill feature if you want, and it kind of automatically copies that formula. And you'll see it kind of changes the cell name based on what cell you're in. And if that feature doesn't work for you, you kind of just go here to the copy button, highlight these cells, and then you would go to kind of right click, paste special, and select this clipboard with the FX option, which is pasting the formulas. And it basically does the same thing. So there's 2 different ways of doing the same thing, based on whether or not you have a computer mouse. Okay. And so now we're on step 11 here. And this is, yes, this is the 8% formula, which is definitely more complex than the 5% formula. So this deals with the 8% commission we give to our salespeople based upon the gross sales. So I'm going to go ahead and do that formula, which is an equal sign. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the parentheses for sure for this formula. B3 minus B4. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the gross sales, subtracting the 5% discount, and then I'm going ahead and doing parentheses, asterisks. Here we are, 8% discount. So you'll see the formula is definitely more complex, and you should definitely use the parentheses because you're doing 2 different operations. So in the parentheses, you're doing subtraction, and then outside the parentheses, you're doing multiplication. So that's why you definitely want that parentheses, since we're having two different, we're having subtraction and multiplication happening for this formula. And then I hit the enter key, and then it automatically does the formula. And then the same thing, I can use the autofill feature to copy and paste that formula for the rest of the cells in B5 that we're using. I mean, not B5, in row 5. And then as a saying, just to review for anyone who might have missed it, is you can do the copy and paste formula as well. So that's another option too. So right now I used the copy button here, and then I got the railroad tracks going around here, and then I'm selecting the empty cells that I want to put that formula in. And then I'm doing the paste special, and it's the second option on the first row. It has the clipboard with the FX next to it. And then it basically copies that formula and just changes the cell names. So that really can save you a lot of time if you got a lot of formulas in your spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and just hit the save button because it's always good to do that periodically. And as I was saying, don't worry, some of our cells right now have borders and some don't. We're going to fix the borders. You can either, we'll learn how to remove the borders or to add borders later after we finish these formulas. And so right now I'm going to step 13 and cell B7. And this formula is not too difficult. So you'll see that there's no parentheses. So this deals with kind of the $500 transportation delivery costs that I guess we're not charging our customers at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and do B6. And then the asterisk key for multiplication, 500. And remember, I don't have to worry about capitalizing B6 as long as I got the two characters next to each other. It will automatically fix that. And then once I hit the enter key, you see it's about $10,000. But when I look in the formula bar, it shows up. And then I hit the enter key to kind of get out of there. And again, I can use either the autofill feature, using that bottom corner there. You'll see there's a little box there in the bottom right corner. To figure out the net sales is a much more complex formula, so we're going to have to use the parentheses for sure, because we're going to be doing subtraction and addition, so we're going to have parentheses to kind of separate those two formulas. So in step 15 in cell B8, I'm going with a more kind of advanced formula to figure out those net sales. So I'm putting that in the chat as well for anyone who might need it. And so I'm selecting cell B8, which is right next to net sales and kind of underneath the January area. And I start my formula with the equal sign, and this is where Autosum won't work. B3, subtract. And then this is where I'm going to have the parentheses. So I'm basically telling it that I want it to add the numbers in the parentheses first, and then it's going to subtract. B4, and you'll see that it kind of highlights. And the plus, if you have a keyboard, I'm not sure where it would be if you have a tablet, but next to the backspace key on your keyboard, there's the plus and the equal sign. So it just depends. I think you have to do shift to get the equal sign. Yeah. Or no, you have to do shift to get the plus sign. And then B5, and then I'm going to do shift plus B7. And you'll notice that I skipped units sold because units sold doesn't make sense in this formula. Now the units sold makes sense when we're talking about the transportation or preparation costs for each item, but it doesn't make sense in the net sales formula, at least mathematically and logically. And then I hit the enter key. And then you'll see here, this is the net sales. So this is kind of like our profits. Now, if you're dealing with a nonprofit organization, of course, you would need to change this table. Maybe instead of gross sales, you could put monthly donations. You probably don't have a discount, so you could probably just delete that and not even include that formula. If you have salespeople where there's a commission involved or some other kind of expenses, you could just come to 8% commission and change that formula to whatever you need it to be. It just depends on what you're selling, or if you're a nonprofit organization collecting donations. And you may or may not need the category transport costs, or in preparation, you may not need that category. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the autofill. So I kind of left click and drag, and it copies and kind of copies the formula and just changes it based upon what cell it is. So you see here, it talks about the B cells. And then when I tab over to the C column, it mentions all the C stuff. So it's nice as it kind of automatically is very smart and intuitive and kind of knows what you're talking about. Or as a saying, you know, if you don't like that autofill feature, like you don't have a mouse, you can always copy that formula, get those railroad tracks, highlight these empty cells, and then do paste formulas. And then it pastes the formulas, and it's basically the same numbers. It's just two different ways of doing the same thing. Okay. And then as a saying, I always go up here to the a formula bar to kind of just double check my formulas. And remember, this formula does not include row 6 units sold, is not included, because we're dealing with net sales. So the net sales kind of, you see here, we added kind of all of our expenses and stuff and subtracted from the gross sales to figure out our net sales or profit. And there we go. Woohoo. Gosh. How's everybody doing so far? I hope everyone's doing okay. I know that this stuff can be a little bit tricky and hard to follow at times. Oh, good. We have over 50 attendees, so that's really great. Awesome. Okay. And as I was saying, these exercises are in the class notes. So of course, the first page of the class notes kind of gives you a nice overview, gives you some basic explanations of some of the formulas. And then kind of, I think it's bottom of page 2, we kind of get into the exercises. And then you'll see here, kind of in this area about complex formulas, it kind of shows you a screenshot if you're using kind of the full version of Microsoft Excel. The transpose is here in that little menu. Uh-oh, there's a little typo there. That was supposed to be in a new line. Okay. So now that we have numbers, hopefully everybody has some kind of numbers to work with. Even if you don't have all the formulas of 5 or 8% discount, don't worry. As long as you've got gross sales and the months here, you can do this bar graph we're going to do real quick. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead here and do formatting the table first. So this is just kind of basic stuff here. So I'm still in sheet 2. And I'm going to go ahead and select cells A2 through G2. And if I wanted to, actually, I could select everything and I could just do no borders if I want to kind of start with a clean slate. So what I did is I kind of just highlighted all these kind of active cells that have information in them, including A2, just because I have to. And the borders button here is in the font group. And then there's, you know, no borders. I went ahead and just did no borders. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a nice border here in this row 2. So I selected A2 through G2. And then I'm going to go ahead and do thick bottom border. Now you don't really see it until I click away from it. And then you see we have a nice solid black border there to kind of make the months stand out more. And then if I wanted to add like another border here to kind of make things stand out here in column A, I could even go up here and select right border. And then you see it kind of makes a nice little border. And then if I was, you know, really liking borders, I could go here and do outside borders. So there's, you know, a couple of different options there. So what I would recommend with this exercise is just play around with the different borders and pick border options that you like or that meet your needs. Okay, so then we got nice borders here. So anyone who might have missed it is what I did is I highlighted cell A2 through G2. And then I went ahead and just did the thick bottom border. And that's how I got that thick border. And then on here in column A, A2 through A8, I did the right border to kind of make these categories stand out more. And then I got fancy and decided I wanted to have a border surrounding this whole kind of table area. So I just highlighted A2 through G8. And then I did outside borders. So you kind of just play with it and find out what borders you like. It just depends on your preferences. Some people like borders, some people don't. Oh, and then there's also the auto kind of color fill option. So if you have color printing or you want to make something stand out more, I'm going to go ahead and select A2 through G2, and you'll see in the font group next to the borders button, which kind of looks like 4 little boxes there, there's a paint bucket. And right now, my paint bucket is yellow. Some of you may have different color, but I'm going to go ahead and just make it green because I think green's pretty. Or you could make it blue or kind of an orange color or beige or whatever. Just whatever your preference are. So in this case, I'm just going to go with the green. And then if I wanted to make these fancy, I could do the same thing. I would just select A3 through A8 and do the same thing. So it's just a matter of preference. If you wanted to make it look more pretty, attractive, or more visually appealing. And then just to review, we talked about this before when we were doing sheet 1 about kind of formatting our numbers. So I'm kind of on the bottom and top of kind of the bottom of page 4, beginning part of page 5 if you're using the notes. Okay, and then so I'm going to go ahead and format these numbers. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of selecting A2 through G2, or actually I'm selecting the whole, yeah, through G8. So I'm selecting everything that has information in it. The only exception, of course, is A2. And then I'm going to go here to the numbers group. And again, when I go to this numbers group and I click on that little dialog box there in the bottom corner of the numbers group, I do number decimal places. And this is if you want to add it. If you want decimal places, you can just leave it 2. Or if you don't want decimal places, you can go ahead and do 0. And then I'm going to use the thousand separator because I do like that. So if you need those decimal places, keep it 2. If you don't, you can do 0. And then you click OK. And then remember, if you're dealing with other types of numbers, you can pick whatever category fits with your numbers. And you hit OK there. And there we go. And just keep in mind, Microsoft Excel has a lot of bells and whistles, so this is just one method of doing it, as a saying, and I'm not as familiar with the Microsoft Excel online version that they have. That's not as full. Like if you're using the free version, it's not as full and complete with all the bells and whistles, so you may or may not have all these options if you're using Word Online. But just follow along with the options that you do have. Now is the fun part. Woohoo! This is the fun part, is adding a chart. Now, we have a lot of formulas and we have a lot of numbers going here, so we're not going to select the entire table to make our bar graph in this instance. We're just going to select kind of two areas of information. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of using a computer mouse and left-clicking and dragging A2 through G2, and then I'm kind of going to use, in this case, because we're dealing with gross sales, I actually could just highlight these areas. So I would highlight A2 through G3 so that I have the months and the gross sales. Now, if anything is not next to each other, you can always use the control key on your keyboard if you're using a keyboard or a mouse pad on your laptop or something. It's just that with the mouse pad with the laptop, it gets a little tricky. You might have to use both buttons or something, or use both hands to get what you want. But you can also use the control key. But in this case, I'm just selecting cells A2 through G3 so that I have the months and the gross sales. And now that I've selected it, I'm going to the Insert ribbon, or in this case, tab. And I'm going to just make this just a teeny bit bigger. So you'll see when you're in the Insert ribbon, there's like a charts group. If you have the full version of Microsoft Excel. And then I have the option for the pie chart here. So I can do insert. Oops, I accidentally deselected things. So it's very important. You got to have the information in rows D, 2 and 3, the months and the gross sales. You got to have those highlighted. Then I can go up here to the insert ribbon and I'm going to do the 2D column. And you'll see here, it kind of already added it. And then I have the option to pick what background I like. You know, it's just a matter of preference. Ooh, okay, so there's a lot of different options depending on what you prefer and what background you prefer. That's kind of like what happens is when you have the table, the new chart that you created, when you have it selected, this new bar graph, then it gives you the option for chart tools, design, and format. As it's saying, this may not be available as a feature in the free version of Excel Online with your email if you got that. And you'll see it actually was nice. It actually, because I guess it noticed gross sales, I went ahead and added that as the table name, which is really nice. Now you'll see that it kind of covers, it kind of is on top of my data, and I don't want that. So if I kind of left click on the chart and kind of drag it, and you'll see it has those four-sided arrows, and I kind of bring it below, then what's nice is that now people can actually see the chart that had all the data in it, and then can also see this new bar graph I created. So it's got the chart with the data that helped to create the gross sales bar graph. And so you can see the sales kind of, you know, they went down in February and then got a little bit better in March and April and then kind of improved from there. So that might be, you know, good information to share with your colleagues or, you know, with your supervisors about how your section or department's doing. So what I did is I kind of, so it was on, so first it was on top and then I left clicked and dragged it kind of in the empty space in the table here. And then there it is. Now I kind of go into a little more detail. We're going to add a second chart or table just to see how comfortable we are with it. But it's going to be different numbers. It's definitely going to be different numbers. Let me see. I might be skipping steps because I have a bad habit sometimes of wanting to skip steps. So let me talk about setting the print area. So especially if you have a sheet, a worksheet with a lot of information on it, you want to kind of tell Microsoft Excel what to print. And the same is even true if you're using Google Sheets. So remember, Google Sheets doesn't have all the same bells and whistles, and the menus are definitely different. But the concept is the same, as you need to kind of tell it what you want it to print, or it won't know. So I'm going to tell it to kind of print this information. So I'm going to kind of zoom out, make it a little bit smaller here. So I'm kind of going to highlight, I guess I'll stop at 29. So I'm kind of highlighting A2 through kind of like H29 just to make sure I kind of got everything highlighted. And you can even stop at G29 if you want, but I think my table, it's better for me to stop at H29. It just kind of depends on where you move your gross sales. So if I move it over here a little bit better, I could probably just stop at G29. So it just matters on where you put things. And then I'm going to go here to page layout, which is right next to insert. It's just to the right of insert. And then I can do set print area. And if I want to get real fancy with it, like I'm trying to fit everything on the same sheet, I can go here to margins and I can make it narrow. I could change the orientation to portrait or landscape depending on how many columns I have. So if you have a lot of columns, like if I was doing 12 months instead of 6 months, I'd probably want to change it to landscape instead of portrait. But because I've been dealing with 6 months, I'm going to just keep it on portrait. And then in the page setup dialog box here in the bottom corner, then you have the options where you can, again, change it either to portrait or landscape. You have the margins here. And then I'm going to go here to center on page and do horizontally so that if I were to print the spreadsheet in this bar graph, it could kind of be centered in the middle. And then let's say you needed to make it look more professional and you want to add a header and footer, and you can even adjust the margins here. So you'd say you just wanted 1/2 inch, which is 0.5 at the top and bottom, but you had a lot of information on the sides, like a lot of columns, and I can have it at 0.25, but you probably don't want to go any smaller than 0.25. And then I click here on the little header tab, and then you have the option for custom headers. And then this is where you can, what header did I say to put in here? So I'm here in this. So what I did is I kind of selected custom header, and then I selected the center section, and then I'm going to say, you know, monthly sales 2020 or whatever it was, or whatever title you want to call it. And then I hit OK. And then when I click on this print preview button, you'll see that everything kind of, I'll make it kind of bigger. So this is the print preview option. So you'll see now that it added my header, which is monthly sales, and then it has my data, the gross sales and the net sales and everything. And then it has my table here, the bar graph, actually the bar graph that I created, gross sales. And then I'm just going to go ahead and kind of hit the back button here. And, you know, this little arrow here kind of next to the print. Remember, you know, you can change your paper size here, your orientation of portrait or landscape. You can even, you know, try to fit everything on one sheet if, you know, it's not too much data. And you can even adjust the margins, and they do have the page setup option here in print preview. And you can decide if you're going to center things horizontally or vertically or whatever you want. And you can adjust the margins to fit your needs here in the print preview option. And I'm going to hit this back button here to get back. And then we're going to deal with a more fun. We're going to add a second chart. Now this second chart that you add is going to deal with units sold instead of gross sales. And this is where, you know, having a keyboard and a mouse really comes in handy. If you have a table, a tablet, it might be a little trickier. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of selecting A2 through G2, which I believe I do have listed somewhere in the steps. So I'm still kind of working on sheet 2. I haven't really needed to use sheet 1 for a while. And then I'm going to use my control key on my keyboard and select units sold, which the cell on my worksheet is A6 through G6. So it's selecting kind of 20 through 26 here. And then I can go back, now that I have those kind of highlighted, they're kind of gray maybe, or blue, or depending on your setup. And then I'm going to go up here, and you can select a 2D or 3D column if you want to try something different. Or if you're really feeling adventurous, let's say you want to do a line, you could do a line graph. As I was saying, I would say for this particular exercise, or if you're doing something similar, probably going with the bar graph or the line graph is probably your best option. And I'm going to go ahead and do line with markers. The pie chart really wouldn't make much sense because you're not dealing with like 100% of something. So I would stick with the line or bar graph for these kind of formulas. And then again, I have too much going on this spreadsheet. So guess what? I've selected my units sold, and it's showing my line graph that I created. Let's say I wanted to go up here in the chart tools area. Since I have it selected, I could see, you know, ooh, that one's kind of nice. It's a matter of just how many lines you like. You know, and you just pick whatever style. So kind of since I have it highlighted, I selected chart tools design. And then in the chart tools design area, there should be somewhere probably in the far right button here, there'll be an option to move chart, and you can actually move it to a new sheet. So this is nice if you want the bar graph or the line graph to be on a completely whole new sheet and separate. You can either do new sheet or you can make it an object. But in this case, I'm going to select new sheet and call it chart 1. Or in this case, I could do chart units sold and click OK. And then there it is. It's nice and big. And then, so that could fit like on a whole sheet of paper. Now, I think there's an option to add an axis. Doesn't really, let's see. Oh, they forgot to add a legend. So mine right now says no legend. So I'm going to try doing a legend. Yeah, I mean, there's not much going on, so I probably don't necessarily have to have a legend. but if I wanted to, I could add one. So you'll see here in Chart Tools, Design, you can pick your different designs. You can change your colors. You know, if you had a more complex table, the colors would kind of maybe show up better. And then you have the option to add, you know, different chart labels and things like that. So if I wanted to, I could add a chart labels. Let's see, above. So see, I can do that. And so it doesn't matter if the chart is, you know, on a separate spreadsheet. So you see now I have sheet 1, chart units sold, and sheet 2. So the same thing with the gross sales. I can again could change to whatever colors I want as long as I have the chart selected. And then I can add any elements I want. Data labels, so I can maybe have it on the outside end if I wanted to. And then again, you can always change, you know, when I click inside here, I can change the title of my bar graph if I want. As I was saying, someone was asking if we could add maybe a more complex formula. Yeah, I think that is possible. It's just that I wouldn't, this chart here has a lot of data, so it would be kind of hard to create a bar graph that fits everything. Whereas, you know, you don't want to go too crazy. And like if you select this whole chart, you're going to run into trouble. So let me see if I can, I'm going to try to select the month gross sales and units sold and create a brand new kind of, I guess, line graph that includes all that information. So let me try that just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to select cells A2 through G2. And then I'm going to use the control key and I'm going to select gross sales. And then I'm also going to use the control key and select units sold. So basically I've kind of selected 3 kind of areas that have numbers and I'm skipping 5% or 8% discount. Actually, I'm wondering, let me just throw in net sales. But as I say, I'm going to leave out the 5% discount and the 8% commission and the transportation costs and just focus on those columns because it's already a lot of information. And then I'm going to go ahead and do insert. And because I'm dealing with so much information, I think I'm going to try the line graph and see if that works better. So I'm going to do 2D. Ooh, units sold. Okay, so it seems to work really well with gross sales and net sales, but it's not working so hot for the units sold. So let me dial back here and I'll just do the months and then I'll do the control key and units sold. So let me try that first. And I'm going to do a line graph because I think the line graph, no, let's try the bar graph and see. Oh, oh, for some reason with the units sold, I think it's just because the numbers are so different. I think that's why. Because you'll notice that the orange box that represents the units sold is very, very small. And then the blue areas where the gross sales are. So I think it's because they're just too far to numbers. It probably doesn't look good. So I think it might be better for me to go with gross sales and select net sales. Yeah, I think that's going to work a lot better. And then I'll do the line graph. Yay. Yeah, that looks a lot better because those numbers are kind of closer together. And then as I was saying, I can always move chart. And then because I have quite a bit of information going on here. And then I'm going to add, of course, a legend to kind of indicate gross sales represents blue and net sales represents orange. And then if for some reason, if I don't like those colors, you know, it gives you some other color options to choose from. Not a lot of color options. I think I'll just stick with the blue and the green. Oh, and then you can, oh, so they have all these different layouts. Nice. So they have a layout change. So if you want to have the numbers there at the bottom, you can. And then I'm going to change the chart table. Uh-oh, okay, good there. So I kind of added it to the bottom. So it has gross sales and net sales at the bottom and kind of compares the two numbers. And then I'm going to go here to where it says chart table and rename my chart. Gross sales versus net sales. But as a saying, if I tried to grab all the information and the data and create a chart, it would be kind of confusing. So it's kind of better just to pick a few things, a few elements, and make a nice chart that is easy to read. And then as a saying, you got your elements here, add chart elements. So I can add data tables. Oh, there it is. If you like that. Ooh, so I kind of like it above. I kind of like to add my data labels above. Okay, so I know we covered a lot of stuff. Oh, okay, so this is an interesting question that somebody asked, is how can I put like sheet 1 into like a Word document? So there is some kind of compatibility with this. Okay, let's see. I see an option to share workbook. Okay. As a saying, what I usually do is like, let's say I wanted to save this table of data and put it in like a Microsoft Word document. I totally could. I think probably for me, the easiest way to do this would be to, I'm going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Word. And you'll see that I only have I have only Word 2016 and Excel 2016 is kind of what I'm using. But as I was saying, these exercises should work with 2013 and 2019. And, I would create a new document. In this case, I'm going to call it sales report, kind of put a title at the top here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of copy and paste this. So I can actually just kind of copy, use my clipboard here. And then you'll notice that the clipboard menu in the home ribbon is pretty much the same for Word and Excel. And then I can actually do paste, and you could do, whatever paste you think is going to work best. I'm going to go ahead and keep source formatting. I think it kind of looks better with the source formatting when I do the paste. And then there it is. Now, the downside is that Microsoft Word is easy to use, but it's just not really good with the formulas. Now, the option is that if you do have Microsoft Word and you do have Microsoft Excel, like you have maybe even the home version of Microsoft Office or the professional version, I believe there is an option for you to like insert a table. And then when you insert a table or a chart, in this case, if you insert a chart, then it automatically kind of opens up Microsoft Excel. So that's another way of kind of linking the two software applications together. But as a saying, I would just have this chart in there for viewing purposes, not so much for adding and subtracting or doing numbers, because Microsoft Word is more for word processing. But this could be a report someone could view if they don't have Microsoft Excel or they feel more comfortable using Microsoft Word. As far as copying like the charts and stuff, that would be a little bit more tricky. Like I could go here to sheet 2 and I could kind of copy that using the little clipboard here. And then if I wanted to, I could kind of copy and paste that in there. And then I would have to make sure with the formula, with the table, I would have to make sure to kind of copy and paste that in there too. Now, if I wanted to edit anything, if I needed to edit anything, then I would probably want to do it in Microsoft Excel and not so much in Microsoft Word. So just remember, if you are using Microsoft Word and you use the insert chart feature, it is going to automatically kind of open Excel. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. And then what happens is to see it kind of automatically opens this, and then you could just fill in your numbers. So this is kind of using Microsoft Excel within a Microsoft Word document. So that's just another way of doing things. It's just a matter of preference. So let's say, for example, this gross sales table that I have, and I wanted to make it a new sheet, so it takes up a whole, sheet of paper. Then I would just select kind of this gross sales box here that has the bar graph, and then and then this chart tools menu kind of opens up, chart tools, design and format. And when you're in that area, chart tools, design, which, is a saying, sometimes it should be towards like the edge, like the right side. You know how you've got all these things here, like page layout and formulas and data and review. So it's kind of to the right of the view and the review tabs. It would be chart tools and design. And when you're there, there's the option to move chart. So right now I have it as an object in sheet 2, but I could always move it, select new sheet, and then it would either be called chart 3, or I could say, I could call it gross sales chart. And then I can add new sheet, and there I am. And then if I change my mind and I'm like, nope, I want to put it back, I could click on move chart, make it an object, and select sheet 2 because that's where it was before. And then I could click OK. So as you see, when you're in your chart, you get in these chart tools menus, and then it's back. And then I would just have to kind of move it back to where I want it, in my print area. So you might have to adjust, your print area, to make sure that you print everything you need to print, especially, if you're required to have a hard copy of this report. And because there's so much to cover in Excel, this is just one course. Honestly, I've taken multiple Excel courses to get comfortable with the software. So, oh gosh, where did my notes disappear to? Okay, there they are. At the last page of the notes, I talk about tutorials where you can learn more about Microsoft Excel, because of course I can't cover everything because there's so much to do in Microsoft Excel. So my favorite website is the Goodwill Community Foundation. It's a free nonprofit website with like no advertising, which is great because a lot of, you can Google YouTube and find some nice tutorial videos, but you will have to deal with advertising. What's great is the Goodwill Community Foundation. Their videos typically don't have advertising or very little advertising at all because they are a nonprofit organization. And the website is gcflearnfree.org, and it is on the last page of the class notes. And so you don't have to have a library card. You just click on that link, and then you got your topics here. They got a lot of wonderful topics. They even have Photoshop and photography classes and basic email and keyboarding skills. But you would just go to the Microsoft Excel section, and then you kind of decide, okay, what version of Excel am I using? You see they even have old versions. They don't have 2019 yet, but 2016 is close enough. So you could just use those tutorials for 2016. If you got 2019, if you want to get in depth with formulas, they got simple, complex, all sorts of more advanced formulas. And then you can just kind of pick and choose. And what's nice is they got the tutorial video that you can just watch on demand, and they're usually pretty short. Like I can't really play videos because I'm on WebEx. It won't really come through. But you see they got like 5-minute videos, and then they got screenshots explaining. Oh, see, they talk about it too. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, the order of operations. And they kind of explain formulas and everything. So it's a really great resource, and it's free. Yay. And you can pick and choose what tutorials you need to watch. Now, with LinkedIn Learning, it's a little bit more involved. That is a professional product that we subscribe to in the library, and you have to have a Broward County library card. So as I was saying, the GCF Learn option is really great for those who do not have a Broward County library card or who aren't super tech savvy. GCF Learn Free is probably a good place to start, or you just want a short, quick video tutorials that are like 5 or 10 minutes. That's the best place to go for that. But if you want an in-depth Excel class with a certificate and, credit, what is it, learning, continuing education credit hours or something, if you need that for your job or school or whatever, then LinkedIn Learning is the way to go. So what you do is if you have your Broward County Library card, you just register for the free NSU e-card. And we have a partnership with the Nova Southeastern University Alvin Sherman Library. We have a joint use library at their Davie campus that is available to, of course, their NSU students and alumni, as well as Broward County Library patrons. And you just register for that that NSU e-card, and you use your Broward County Library card to do that. And then you can actually access LinkedIn Learning. Now you have to go through the library website. You can't go directly to LinkedIn Learning, or they're going to charge you $15 a month for the subscription. And it has like 2-hour, 5-hour, 30-minute like tutorials and classes for LinkedIn Learning. And what I like about it is that you can download a certificate. Okay, yeah, okay, class is officially over. It's 7:34. So thank you guys for your positive feedback. I appreciate it, and I hope everybody learned at least 1 or 2 new things. As I was saying, don't be a stranger. You can always email us at cybrary@broward.org, and I can answer some basic, any basic questions you have about this class and Excel and how to access LinkedIn Learning if you need it. But we have to go this evening. Our work day is over. Thank you guys for attending, and have a great day.